Wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
The captain says you are a friend. I will not kill you.
Well, good morning. It is that time again, dear friends. It is time to get back to work on some fun models this week. It is the last week in... It's the last week in February already? It's pretty darn close. Spring is in the air. Children are playing in the streets. Birds are singing. I actually did a little bit of yard work yesterday before the rains came in. And that's something I'll be doing more of this summer. Last year I let the yard go just completely. This year I really need to take more care of that. So less model working, more yard working. So we'll see how well that works out. And it could be like a New Year's resolution that the first week, the second week you keep, and then it starts falling off. We'll see. I did a couple of things this weekend that I'm going to pop in after this introduction, and then we'll catch back up to where we are. But I had a brain fart over the weekend. I had to fix something on the K2, so I had to go ahead and do that before the fleeting idea fleeted away. So let's stop now, pop in the reports from this weekend, and come back. Hello and welcome back. It's Saturday, and yes, I'm doing a little bit of work off the clock, as it were. But I was motivated. I was inspired, so I went ahead and did it. First of all, I gotta tell you that I don't know what this is. It's a resin cancer, I believe. I believe that's a resin cancer, where sometimes you get that when you're mixing up epoxy resin and you're casting it, and you get a spot that's not quite mixed right, and it never ever cures. I think that's what that is, because every time I tried painting over it or putting primer over it or anything, it just rejects it. It rejects it like a bad liver. And I think the only cure is going to be to actually drill that out and plug it with new Bondo. That's the only thing I can think of. I could try putting a little bit of Bondo over the top of it. Maybe just Dremel it down a little bit. I think what happened is that I must have hit a pocket of this when I was sanding. I sanded, I sanded quite a bunch of this down. And I must have hit that like a bubble. Sometimes you get a bubble in your castings. This is bothering me. And it's right on the top of his head, right in the dead center. So I think what I'm going to try to do is get a little dollop of Bondo out. See if that will fix it, and if it doesn't, the only thing left is to take a big drill bit, core that out like a cancer. You cut all of the infected resin out and plug it with another piece of resin and see how well I can reshape that. But getting back to the eyes at the moment, you can see this little mechanism. You remember this much of it from the week, but what I've done today is built that frame. And what that does is it allows it to slide back. And I'm trying to do this without moving the camera. But it slides, you can see it when I do this. It slides back and forth in the frame, and it goes up and down a little bit. So if I can epoxy the frame to the inside, then I will have the mobile eye compartment on the inside. And then I can put my stick or control mechanism, whether that's a puppeteering stick or however elaborate it needs to be. There's my grabbing point right here, is this bolt, because I can bolt something onto it and then run that down to do the moving. But I think that's about the most elegant solution I could come up with. So before I can epoxy that into the inside of the head, I think I want to, like I said, I want to take the chance to, or take the opportunity to fix that, and then make sure doubly that I am done painting anything around here that's going to bump up against the inside of that. I went ahead and attached the screens to the front of this so that, let me get this. I know it's the weekend, but let me drag the old easel or the old tripod out. Okay, now I can show you. Here's the box with the module inside of it. Can't really tell the up and down very much, but you can do the side to side. Now the up and down isn't going to be as necessary as the side to side, so that's okay. But now let me grab this guy here, And it's already easier to move this around, I can tell you, because of that bolt. But there you go. Just like that. Oops. There you go, just like that. So that when I epoxy the frame down, I cannot do this with one hand, I'm sorry. But there you go. Now without the lights on, maybe you can see. There you go, you can see, shine a light in it. You can see the screening behind there. I think that adds that last bit of interest. And then there's the eye moving back and forth inside the socket. So it's getting there. Longing for the day when I can do this without having to hold it in one hand. So back to your regularly scheduled weekend. Good morning, it's Sunday, and I'm still working off the clock on this, but you'll notice that the K2 has had a whitening treatment. Yeah, sorry, that's the coffee finishing in the other room. But I got a nice coat of the gray filler primer on here yesterday. It seems to have cured the cancerous bits there. I did end up putting some Bondo over top of that and sanding it down, and since it didn't seem to be rejecting it, I figured it was safe to go ahead and put some primer on it. But it looks like a bit like a cue ball, and he's completely the wrong color. But I gotta tell you, I love that duplicolor filler primer. So today's goal is going to be getting a black primer on top of this, and taking it nice and slow. If I can get a nice couple of coats of black primer on there and buff it down to where maybe Monday we can start the week with a final coat of color on there. But yeah, looking a bit like Dr. Evil here with the white bald head, but looking good. And we're back. Wasn't that amazing? Here is where we are. Here's the current state of the eye box. Eye box. I can shift the eyes back on. That's because of the battery. Sorry, folks. Shift eyes up and down and back and forth. Now. The thing I need to do, well, let's get back down to the table. Back down to the table now, and here is the eye box, and there's the motion back and forth and side to side. The thing I need to do is really secure this into the inside of the head, so that all of these stresses and strains from moving back and forth don't want to make it pull loose. What I'm going to do is position it in place with a slow curing epoxy sculpt. Use the epoxy sculpt, kind of dam it in from a couple sides, get it positioned, and let that set up. And then once that's in position and secure, I can go around that with thicker epoxies and things like that. But I can't just hit the super glue and hope I stab it in the right place, right off the bat, because that never happens. I need something slow acting to put that in place, and then I can fill it in with the epoxies after that. But you've heard me sing that song before, so I'm not going to do it again. But what I need to do first is to immobilize these eyes, so that when I set this down, I can determine where the eyes are in their center location before you're moving the right and the left, because I don't want to have it all cattywampus and have no range of movement, because that kind of defeats the whole purpose. So let me bring the head in and get it all propped up and safe, because it's got those delicate tusks in the front. But let me go get that. I brought the head in, and here's that paint cancer I was talking about. You can still see how this little line is showing up. It's a lot better today than it was yesterday, so maybe having it dry for another day was the key. Not looking as bad as it was last time I reported on it, but I figured out what I need to do, which is always good news, and you've heard me say that 1,000 times before I've actually figured out. I want to spray his face with the final color, because I'm getting ready to put these eyes in behind here, and I don't want to run the risk of overspraying the eyes the eye box once I'm doing the final color. So if I spray a light coat just around his face and eyes, let that dry, and then I can apply the box from the back side, then I am free to make some cotton wadding or even a plastic disc here to block that before, while I'm painting. So I just want to do a quick spray across the eyes, get it in anywhere where the that might overrun into the eye box, and let that dry before I install the eye box. Hopefully this will all make sense. Okay, first shot of K2 with the eyes in place. That little block has dried in. I have not put the little movement thingy on it yet. That'll come. But those are the eyes, and you can see the pupils in there, and everything's cool. Nice. And now we're working on the voice box, which is taking a decided turn, and I'll talk about tomorrow. Well, one look at this desk will tell you that it's Electronics Day here. So the weather has not been cooperating recently. It's either been bright and cold or warm and rainy. So the days that I've been able to do a lot of work outside have been rare. And so today is one of those bright but not warm days out. So I'm waiting for it to warm up so that I can put more top coats of paint on K2SO. So I am instead working on his voice. Now, in the old days, what I would normally do would be to go into my stash of these greeting card modules from Big Dogs, and apparently they don't make them like this anymore, so they are becoming as rare as hen's teeth. And I would pull one of these out, and I would, program the sounds into it, push the buttons, and Bob's your uncle, you've got sound. You've heard me use these before. I used it on the Dracula, I used it on the Lost in Space robot, used it on the Star Wars Bandai droids. And the Satellite 11 I also used them on. And I think they work very well. Now, I don't know whether it's the age of the batteries or what, but I tried using this on K2SO, and it gave me all the audio clarity of a wet fart in the bottom of a well. And I think it's because of how big, bad, and thick the resin is on that helmet. I thought it would act like a big resonating chamber and amplify everything, but no, it's muffling it to the point of incoherence. So I'm using this as a good excuse to pull this other thing out. And this is something I've had for a while. I was experimenting with for the captain's chair, and that is an Arduino board. I'm sorry, it's a Adafruit board. It has a lot of capabilities for sounds, for triggers to wire up, and it has a built-in amplifier, and we'll see how well that works. So there's the speaker outputs. But basically the same way is you hook it up to your computer, you transfer the files over to it, and then you use these pre-programmed buttons to trigger your sounds. The problem with them is that you have to name the files in a very particular way to get them to work. You can't just drag MP3s into it. They have to be WAV files or OGG files, which I'm not that familiar with. So it's a different kettle of fish, and it's about to test the level of my electronic ability. Another thing it needs is I need to find some of these switches to do the triggering. Hold on, I gotta sneeze. I'm back. I just sneezed all over my camera, and you won't believe the mess. But anyway, I need to come up with some switches here. Well, these are Radio Shack switches, and guess what we don't have anymore? We don't have Radio Shacks. So I need to either go around to my regular haunts today and see if I can find any little good momentary switches like this, or order some online, which is going to put another delay into the proceedings. But I was able to round up maybe 3 or 4 from my different little stash drawers around here. And that's not going to quite carry the day. So I need to see if I have any more, or if I can find any good local substitutes. I know that they make push-button switches at the automotive store, but they are, gigantously expensive compared to these simple little push switches. I'm tempted to to sing a chorus of the Big Yellow Taxi song. I bet you don't always know what you got till it's gone, but you can't just walk to a Radio Shack and get a bunch of these switches anymore. So what I'm doing is I am wiring up some speakers, and I think I'm going to have to put them in the base rather than in the head like I was wanting to. The base is, I've got plenty of room for it. I just think that everything is going to be handled better if I hide everything down in the base rather than trying to put it up in that cavernous head. So let's try this out, see how it works. Okay, I think I've come up with a concrete way of demonstrating the difference here. This is all very patched together and sloppy, but this is what the sound file sounds like inside the head, without any extra holes cut in it or anything.
Our optimal route to the data vault places only 89 stormtroopers in our path. We will make it no more than 33% of the way before we are killed.
Okay, now let me put it in the base, and we'll put the speakers down in the base, and I'll show you the difference. Now this is the same file, everything exactly the same setup. I've just moved the speakers from up here to down there.
Our optimal route to the data vault places only 89 stormtroopers in our path. We will make it no more than 33% of the way before we are killed.
I think you can hear the difference for yourself. Yeah, I'm going to put the speakers in here, and I think I'm going to run all the little buttons. There's a nice panel back here to run the sound activating buttons. But okay, here's the inside of the helmet. I had to take a break from doing the technical electronic stuff because it was making my brain hurt. But this has had a chance to cure in all night. The box is in there good and solid. I can wiggle that about all I want, good and solid. Before I put the linkages in that will allow me to move that, I want to further solidify those. So I think I'm going to fill in more with some more of that plastic, and then put the 5-minute epoxy around it. Get that in there with no excuse for ever coming out, which generally means something will have to break on it. But get that in nice and solid, and then that's one less issue I have to worry about while I work on painting the exterior. If you look straight across, I'm trying to do this straight across here, from about that point where my little finger is there, you can see that if you look straight across, you will hit that bolt sticking up. So that's where I'm going to cut my slot to run my control, my puppeteering rod. And I want to make sure everything's good and solid before I start monkeying around with that. And there you can see that the eye box is getting firmly packed in there, as it were. I've got plastic, it's been epoxied in. I've got more epoxy sculpt going around the bottom of it. It's looking damn good because I'm damming it in there. Okay, the other news is not so good. I struck out. I got a whole big pile of goose egg. I got bupkis. Got nothing. Went to the big box hardware store. Nothing. Went to the local RC shop. Nothing. Went to a dollar store. Nothing. Went to an auto parts store. Nothing. I cannot find a suitable replacement for those little momentary switches that the late lamented Radio Shack sold in abundance. Boy, when you didn't want them, you couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting them. Not that I did either, but you couldn't. But so that leaves me with one inescapable, obvious solution, and that is to go to the great world of the internet, to go online and order a bunch. But that's going to set me back. That's time. I can't get anything unless I spend huge amounts of capital to overnight them, and I really don't want to do that. So I'm going to order some. They'll come in when they come in. I'll do as much as I can around that step, including getting the switches wired without the switch on the end, and getting everything installed. And then I'll just have to wait for the switches to install them when they come. So, okay, here is the youngster with a coat of the again, it is called Dark Spiral Gray Metallic from Duplicolor, all over it. It's completely head to toe, top of his little beanie head down to the base, all has that coat on it. I don't have the eyes turned on, obviously. So what I am left to do now is, and this is covering over, so I'm not getting some of the of that bleed through that was happening before, the paint cancer, as I was calling it. But now I can start playing around with painting in the detail and putting on some scuffs and things like that. I'm going to be running the speakers. I'm trying to figure out my planning here. I'm going to be running the speakers out both sides, so I'm going to be cutting some holes in the sides for to let the sound out, obviously, and I'm going to be mounting all the switches back here, so I can at least be doing that kind of stuff while I wait for the switches to show up. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to, since I'm ordering them online from Radio Shack, and I don't know how long it's going to take for them to get here. I don't know how many black ones I'm going to get, how many red ones I'm going to get. They all looked red in the online. I didn't have the option to choose black, so maybe that's just a generic picture and some of them will come black. I ordered a blue million of them so that I will not run out of them in the near future. So maybe if I get enough black ones that I can make a nice little plate back there for the switches. There's a red detail that needs to be painted here, so red isn't completely out of the color scheme, but coming along nicely, I think. There you can see look into my eyes. There you can see the grates there, and I can start painting the silver highlights in there. That'll be fun. Okay, it's tough to tell because of the glare or the lens flare, but I've got the little rod under here to do the puppeteering of the eyes. Now I need to loosen up. It's kind of tight, but you can see that's what I'm going for. There you go. Well, good morning. It's Wednesday, and the weather wheel of fortune says that this morning is going to be the only time I should be outside because it's supposed to rain as it gets later in the day. So what I need to do pronto before it gets too nasty is, because I need to do it out on the back deck, is to sand this. What I'm doing with it is I'm making a base for K2 that sits on top of it like this. Actually, the base will go up inside, so I need to sand it a little bit smaller than this to make a solid base. I will cut a hole in that right about back here somewhere so that I can swap the battery in and out. Okay, I've got it sanded down. Now these were obviously never going to be completely flush. Gaps easily filled with epoxy, but now that I've got the base in, I can cut the hole out for access, and then I can, the next thing I want to do, obviously, besides worry about the access flap, is to glue the speakers in. And what I've done here is I've cut out some hole drilling templates in the vinyl, and these are going to be for the speaker grills, and the speakers are these guys, so that's going to fit something like that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick these on the side here, and that will act as a template for me to drill the holes so that they come out somewhat neat and organized and aligned. We'll try it at least. And then I'm going to do something on the back here for the audio switches, of which there are 11. So easier than trying to, pencil them on and draw them on. I'll just stick that whole thing on at once, and then I know the holes are lined up. So that's the next step. Let's do that. Okay, with the drilling templates in place, all I need to do now is get to the drilling. Well, all the holes are drilled. Voila and voila. But this brings up another problem you have when you are working with stuff that is cast resin. And especially if it's an open cast like this, where it's just, poured in and sloshed around, it has a tendency to collect in the corners, and it's very much thicker here. It's not a uniform thickness like you get when you are scratch building or when you are working with a commercial kit. So as a result, some of these guys go all the way in, some of them don't go all the way in because the wall, as you get to the top here, is thicker. So what I need to do is take some sandpaper or a Dremel and just basically thin some of this down. This side is fine, but you can see where the top layer of the holes coming for the grill. I went through all of that, so yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to be ground out of that so that the speakers can lay flat there. So you can see how much actually has to come out. A lot of this, where you can see the spill here, that a lot of that has to come out. Like I said, this side not so bad because it's pretty smooth all the way up to the corner. So got to get the mask and the gloves and the this will be just like when I ground out the neck out of the when I had to ground all of this out, when I had to grind all this out. So it's going to take a bit. It's going to raise a cloud. So I need to go outside and do this and report back when it's done. Okay, I've got the area hogged out so that I can put the speakers in from the inside. There's one thing that's just cropped up that I need to take care of, and that is I need to paint the insides of these holes black before I glue the speakers in or attach the speakers in from the inside. I just don't like the fact that they look white. So I'm going to hit them with a little bit of paint. These I'm not worried about because switches will actually be protruding from them. But those speaker holes I need to do something with. So, okay, I'm working on the K2 SO head still. I will be for a while. Coming up on the next little issue I wish to tackle while the base is drying. I sprayed those holes, but while those are drying, I've got an issue of this plate here. The plate that this sits on, that the head sits on, is very nice. And when it's right side up, gravity takes part of it. There's not going to be any sort of an issue. But what I'd like to do is make this accessible so that I can get in case I have to. I don't want to glue this down. Plus, I want to power the eyes and the eyes. Power the eyes and have a battery and everything inside there, and have the switch poking out the back here somewhere. Still haven't figured that out yet. So the battery's going to sit here on a piece of Velcro, and the switch is going to come up through, and then the wiring is going to go into there, so that when I need to travel with this thing, I can just pop the whole head off and break it down into two parts. So to make this reusable, what I want to do is put some magnets down, and I'm going to basically put a magnet here, and back there, and here, and that way it's magnetized. I can pull it off when I need it. Like I said, 9 times out of 10 this is going to be sitting right side up, and gravity's going to hold it down, but it will just make it more secure. So what I want to do is mark out for the magnets and drill them, and then I want to put a modular plug so that I can unplug the wiring that goes to the eyes from the rest of the wiring that's going to go on here, so in case I need to separate them from a distance I can and not have to worry about stretching wiring and all that kind of stuff. So let's get to doing that. Okay, 6 big magnets later, and we have closure, and I can pick that whole thing up just by the ball there. That's how strong those magnets are. But that's going to give me all kinds of security now, knowing that that head is never going to come off of the neck unless I want it to, or this neck plate. So next thing is to wire in the battery and the switch. Well, that was fun. I finally got to put some color on the thing. Well, silver as a color. And of course it's going to be aged in. I just wanted to get a get the color mask in there, and I use it as a base. I used that heavy, the Vallejo Air steel as a base to cover over the black, and then I'll probably put one of the metal colors, the Vallejo Airs, on top of that to give it more of a chrome look, but something to break up the black. And of course the bit that's red here, I just put a silver undertone on it so that the red won't have to, when you paint red over black, you can get it really muddy sometimes, so it's best to undercoat that with another color so the red doesn't have to work as hard. But now I'm going to sit this out on the base and take a look at it all in one piece. Meanwhile, in Maria world, I've repainted the old beer base, and I am starting work on getting her rebased. The bulbs will go in there. Obviously, I'm going to cut some new holes for the other 3 bulbs. Got to find something to close up that hole in the center. I don't think I can get one bulb to shine up through there. We'll have to see. But this is looking nice. I just put a coat of the gunmetal on that. Wanted something that was quite a different break from the bronzish gold of Maria herself. Well, good morning. It's Thursday. It's a wet, rainy, cold, raw day outside. So the kind of day that makes you want to curl up with a movie on a couch. But not me. No, not me. I'll be working on models. We're here at the dining room because, yay, I got another order for templates today. So vinyl cutters cutting in the other room. And that means more happy people will have their Franklin templates in the near future. So what we've got is, here we are at kind of a standstill with the base. I've got the wiring all. Let me give you a sample of the sound quality here. This is just an average here.
I'm K2SO. I'm a reprogrammed Imperial droid.
So, what I'm lacking are the switches. You can see this hair coming out the back. That's one for each switch plus a ground. And I got an update from Radio Shack. Yes, they still work online. That I've got, my switches are on the way. Obviously, this is Thursday. They're not going to make it for this week's report. So even if they came in Friday, I don't think they're going to come overnight. That's ridiculous. They have to come all the way from Texas. So the earliest I can expect those is the beginning of next week. So that means next week we will finish this up. But really all I have to do to this is to join up these wires with switches and then...
Quiet! And a fresh one if you pop off again.
That will... Oh.
I'm sorry about the slap.
You got to do that. But I need to put the base in. The base is kind of sitting under there. I need to glue it in, but I want to wait until the wiring is done before I do that. The good news is that battery's been running overnight, and it still seems to have plenty of juice in there. So that's the rechargeable battery. Let's see, what else is there? Oh, you saw yesterday that I started painting the silver on, and now I'm to the point where I need to scuff this guy up and actually put some damage on it. But it's ready to, just sits down in there in that ball and then moves around. Take us around the front so you can see how he looks complete. Yes, I'm setting the, yes, it's still crooked even with a tripod. Let's see if I can get him up there. There you go. Also, in the order from Radio Shack is the switch I'm going to use to light up his eyes. So that's why that has not been done. But barring any, well, actually, I think what I can do this week is, while I'm waiting, is to do some more detail painting, and I may do that today or tomorrow to pass the time while I'm waiting for the rest of the stuff to come. And that's K2 till now. And I've taken a break since the vinyl cutter has finished the current load, and I'm getting ready to send another to show you where we are with Maria. I'm going to work some on the base today because I can do the quiet work here on the countertop, and it's small and I don't have to worry about going outside in the rain to prime anything. But this has had a nice coat of gunmetal on it. I've got a mask cut for the logo that I'm going to put on the front. I haven't decided what color that's going to be yet, whether I'm going to do that in gold or something. I've mapped out where the feet land on the base, and I'm going to drill out some holes here so that I can put some screws up through the bottom of the feet and into there to hold that in place a little better. And then we can start repositioning the bulbs. I do need to, there are 3 bulbs that go here, and then I have to find something to cover that hole with. But other than that, I think that's my stated goal for today. Working on Maria's base today, and while the K2 is at a standstill, and I've got the logo down, did some painting in there, and I'm waiting for that to dry a little bit before I take those masks off. But you can see I've got the lights reinstalled. I've got the holes drilled out for the feet, and I just need to find something to fill in that center. Well, this is a momentous day. It's been, what, 10 years, 10 years? No, see, 2004 to 18, about 15 years since I've gotten back into the modeling in a big bad way. And in all of that time, maybe not since the very beginning, but this is the epoxy sculpt I've been using. I finally ran out. I finally ran out of A, and since you're supposed to match this, 50-50, this will tell you how lousy I am at mixing, because I've got that much left of B. So when I thought I was doing it 1 for 1, I was using a lot more A than I was of B. But what I did is I stuffed it back up in here to push the bulbs back in place. You may notice this is clean again because I have decided to redo the logo. Once I pulled the vinyl off, it was way too small. So I had more room to make it bigger, so I'm going to make it bigger. But the good news is I've got a reserve. Now, I picked this up probably maybe 2 years ago at Wonderfest, and have not cracked into it. But that means I've got 2 new tubs of epoxy sculpt to start in on, and I am going to just toss these 2. Yes, I know there's a little bit left in that one, but they go into the ceremonial trash, or they go ceremoniously into the trash. There's no such thing as ceremonial trash. And then I can, on my next project, open these guys up. But just to show you how long that stuff lasts, and I use it pretty regularly, so I definitely got my money's worth out of that. But enough of the folderol. Let's get back to painting this logo. And the good news today is, for those of you who didn't catch it on Facebook, Round 2 has announced that they are finally making the 350 scale Katinga. Oh, this is going to be a good year for modeling, folks. It's going to be a great year for modeling, folks. We've got a Katinga in our future. 350 scale to go with the refit. Now, you know what that means. That means I can effectively get rid of or ignore the 350 that I did from rail that Richard Long made years ago, that I had that crack happening in. So the good news is I've got a Katinga in my future. Now, they're saying September, so it's quite a few months away. This is only the announcement of the announcement, but certainly good news for all of us who like our Star Trek models. Look at that detail. I don't know what kind of Aztek painting supplies I may be adding to this. I can imagine doing something to help paint that plating. But like I say, early days. But good news! Okay, take 2 on the logo painting. I just blew it up a little bit bigger and raised it up a little bit higher, and painted it much the same. So I'm going to let this dry for a bit and then take the vinyl off. Now I like this one much better. Much taller, much bigger, fills up the space a lot better. So now that it's nice and dry, I need to put I guess I need to put a coat of clear over top of it to protect it. And then I can drill and mount Maria on it tomorrow, and do something about directing these lights. Okay, I guess one of the few things I can do today is mount Maria. No, keep your puns to yourself, your dirty thoughts. Mount Maria to the base. And I've got the holes drilled here. All I need to do is go from the inside and get some epoxy out. I want to put some epoxy where her feet go, And then, so she's glued and screwed. There are the 4 holes in her feet. I want to make sure she's glued and screwed to her base. Okay, here's an idea I think is going to work. It also kind of fits in with the Art Deco theme, as I've taken a bunch of different lengths of aluminum tubing, and I've 45'd them there. Look like a little bit of church organs, pipe organ pipes. But what I'm hoping to do with all of this, and of course I've got to glue them down, is to direct the light up higher so that it's not so much straight on the legs. And by sending it up a little bit higher, it actually, of course, it's gonna light up the legs because the legs are close to the bulbs. But it is actually shooting the light up to the head as well, plus giving me, not only do you not see those bare bulbs anymore, which is kind of unattractive, but it kind of reinforces the church organ Art Deco look. So it's a question of whether I'm going to have them pointing out like this or whether I'm going to have them pointing in. Both have their advantages. It's just a question of, and I'm going to have to kind of sit there and hold them with the glue because there's no real good level way for them to sit. These guys all tilt. These guys all tilt in. So I'm kind of trying to combat that tilt. These guys are on level ground, so they're going to be easier to glue in, but it's a question of whether or not I'm going to get this on camera, spin those around like that so that they show the light a little bit better. Things to think about. And here's the finished Maria. Now the only thing I really need to do is to do some light blocking around the base of these, because even though they're metal, they didn't get a good tight seal around the bulb, so I'm seeing way too much light at the base of these, and that's just going to be a matter of using a bit of black tulip, I'll bet. But she is quite finished. Now I gotta take it back. There's one little bit there. I still haven't figured out what to put in that center hole, so I gotta find something. I don't know what, but I gotta find something. Something I've been wanting to do, and that is to cut a silver accent and silver vinyl to go around here, and I'm gonna add some little accents maybe on the neck and on some of these greeblies in here, just to spice it up a little. And there we go, a simple chrome line of chrome vinyl to accentuate that neck depression, and a couple of little, I put some light catchers in here. They really aren't meant to do anything other than to catch a glint here, like this guy, and a couple spots up here. You'll never notice them unless the light hits them, especially once that big head sits on top of it and shades the rest of it. But this guy here is meant to be fairly prominent. So now go ahead and join this with the rest of its head out in the other room. Here's a dramatic shot of our two robots in the dark. To make too fine of a point on it, let's see. There's the eyes moving back and forth. I've got the sound all in, which was an important part of this week. Let me see if I can, as I'm using the tripod. Let me see if I can put some sounds together. Hold on 1 second.
Our optimal route to the data vault places only 89 stormtroopers in our path. We will make it no more than 33% of the way before we are killed.
Not bad. Not too shabby. It's coming together quite nicely. I still want to do a little bit of weathering. Obviously I need to do the weathering on K2, but a little bit of the weathering on the silver bits, and then doing the scuffs and the paint scratches and things like that on him. That'll be next week. Monday the switches come in, so that'll all get done next week. And this may be the last time you see Maria, except for maybe I'll start off next week showing where she ended up. But pretty much done. Patch the light leaks here, and she'll be all taken care of. So let's the lights back on. You can see in the shining glory. And that's pretty much going to wrap up where we end up this week. And as the winds of March continue to blow outside, it is really coming in like a lion. We're going to draw the curtain gently on another week's building here. I wish I had if I had planned in advance, which you know is not my strong suit. If I had planned in advance, I would have had those switches already here. And I think what happened is that one decision snowballs into another. At first I had decided I was going to use the little greeting card sound effects, and if I had used those, then I would have used my typical little made-up switches. But once that switched over to the really good, the Adafruit board, then, which I still think is a much better decision because the sound quality and just everything about that is better. Once I decided to do that, then that meant I needed to get switches and did not have any here. And of course, Radio Shack being bankrupt, I have to go online to order them that way, which is, you can see how everything like that snowballs. So the long and the short of it is that those switches are on the way. They will be here at the beginning of the next week. I'll put them in. I'll document that then, and we'll go on. Maria, for lack of a better term, is finished. Just adding those little lights and adding the little pipe organ directors on the lights, I think helped. But that dressed up what was otherwise a kind of a vanilla presentation. And I think we're going to be carrying that into next week. We'll obviously be finishing up the K2. But I think I'm also going to take care of a couple of spring cleaning projects, and that might mean Christopher Johnson. He's sitting there. He's going, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. But Christopher Johnson, and there's another character that has been floating around the display room that seriously needs to get finished up, and I think I will take care of a little bit of eyes and teeth next week on Slimer. Ooh, won't that be fun? So until then, stay safe, stay dry, stay out of the wind. Don't take any kites outside. You're liable to be blown away. And be good to each other, and we will see you here bright and early next week. Well, early. I don't know how bright. That's anyone's guess. Bye.